Good evening and welcome to episode 6 of A Beer and a Tune. I am your host, JP Spencer. I thought I'd start this week's show with a little bit of housekeeping. So, the first thing I wanted to do is thank all of those who have subscribed to this particular playlist, this particular channel, this particular corner of the internet universe in the last week. I appreciate it. Know that I don't actively beg for subscribes and likes. I think that is childish. I think it is very self-centered, and it's not something that I'm going to do. What I'm really trying to do is help out my local microbreweries so at the end of this pandemic we can all enjoy a finely crafted small batch beer here locally. And as a postscript, if you like some of the dumb songs that I write and I tack onto these at the end, then that's fine too. But I thank you for the new subscriptions, and let's jump right into tonight's brewery. So I first met Nate and Ben, the guys who run Faklandia Brewing, in May of 2019 at the monthly meeting at that point of the Bayview Brew Club. We haven't met now in 11 months, which is timed with the beginnings of the worst part of this pandemic. So one thing I'll tell you is that don't let first impressions fool you. If you have people who are coming to you and they seem very small and you don't think they're going to make it, just focus on the product. Because if they have a good product, chances are they're going to keep going. And that's what Nate and Ben did. They started in 2016 in their garage. And slowly they moved to contract brewing. And if you're not familiar with what contract brewing is, if you're a large brewery, some larger breweries in Wisconsin are places like Point and Central Waters and some of the bigger breweries in Wisconsin. If you're a big brewery and you have some capacity for tanks, what somebody will do is they'll come to you with the ingredients and the recipe. You provide the tanks and you do some contract brewing for a smaller microbrewer just to fill out some capacity. And that's what Faklandia did. They were doing some contract brewing at the time that we met them. It was right before they bought their own brewing operation over in St. Francis, which is not technically Milwaukee, but it's the next town over to the south of here. So they have a place in St. Francis where they're doing most of their brewing, and in the last year, perhaps not the best timing, but I'm doing my best to help them out, they bought a restaurant as well as a place to serve beer that's a full-service bar over in St. Francis as well on Packard Avenue, where they serve pizzas and burgers and a Friday fish fry and lots of their own beer. Now, one thing that they do not have yet is a canning operation. That's one of the things they don't have yet. So what we have here is a growler, and this is a chance to tell State Line Liquors in Elkton, Maryland, that if you're looking for that growler that wasn't returned 7 years ago, here it is. And the other one that wasn't returned 7 years ago is in my fridge. This was filled by Nate over at Faklandia on Saturday. I buzzed over there to pick up a couple growlers of their beer because I wanted to highlight them this week. So they make some very interesting beers, but the twist on Faklandia is that Nate and Ben are also fantasy realm junkies. Think about Dungeons and Dragons, but in beer. So they've created their own fantasy universe of characters and places and people, and they've turned them into beers that they have named. But they make some very interesting beers behind these names. So tonight's beer is a beer called Tovaneer's Quest. Now, I'm not going to butcher the fantasy story that Faklandia Brewing has with regard to their different beers and why they are named that. But I can tell you that what I'm about to pour out of this growler, again because they don't have a canning operation, is a farmhouse ale, a saison, with some very interesting flavorings. It has blood oranges and Szechuan peppercorns. Now, at first you're like, okay, if I had a blood orange and covered it with peppercorns, there's not a chance in hell that that's going to be good. Well, what you do with ingredients like that seem to be on polar opposites of the universe is you put them in a beer and all things are made better. Now, another thing that Faklandia Brewing does not have are their own glasses. I did see glasses with the Faklandia Brewing logo on them behind the bar, and I asked Nate, "Do you sell glasses?" He said no. And here's a lesson for all of you. If you're going to make a logo for your brewing company, try not to make it in 7 colors because they can't silk screen it, they can't get a good graphics design on a glass, and it's turned into a thing. So instead of using a Faklandia Brewing glass, and I invite you to look up Faklandia, that's Faklandia on the internet. They do have a thriving Facebook page, even though you can't find me on Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Twitter. You can only find me on YouTube, where they show their menu and they talk about some of the beers that they make. So this is a farmhouse ale, Saison, with blood oranges and peppercorns. Let's pour it out. This is going to be interesting. I don't usually pour it out of a growler. And I'm borrowing the glass that I used for Third Space Brewing a few weeks ago. I don't think they'll mind. Small brewer pouring into small brewer. Okay. Ugh. That reminds me I'm behind on shoulder surgery. Okay. So here we have, let me hold that up. Let me put the growler down. Here is Tovaneer's Quest. Again, farmhouse ale, Saison, flavored with blood oranges and Szechuan peppercorns. It's available at Faklandia Brewing Company on Packard Avenue in St. Francis. If you want to meet me over there, just call me. I'll have a pizza or a few appetizers with you and some really good beers. Now, they usually serve this in a brandy snifter over there. I don't have any brandy snifters, so here we go. To Faklandia Brewing and their wonderful beer, Tovaneer's Quest. I believe it's roughly 8.8 or 9.5% alcohol. Depends on the batch. Here we go. Oh, I love that peppery finish. Believe it or not, those peppercorns really spice up that finish. It's really a good beer. So that is this week's beer. Stay tuned for this week's tune. So for tonight's tune, I thought I'd give you one that I wrote back in 2002 while on a business trip to New Orleans. It's named after the street that my hotel was on. It's called Camp Street. And now that it's above 10 degrees in Milwaukee, let's see if my fingers work. Because on the previous half a dozen takes of this song that I recorded prior to this one, they didn't. Standing wide awake again, I could swear that I still have some life to spend. Looking down from the 12th floor, hoping for a little more and an open window. Insomnia returns, stitch the cuts and soothe the places I've been burned. Toss and turn from bed to bed, and the pounding in my head is getting in rhythm. And the lights go out on Camp Street, and the lights go out on Camp Street, and the lights go out on Camp Street till the sun shines down on us again. are stumbling down the empty, darkened streets and laughing through the town. And even when the bars are closed, someone everybody knows just keeps on drinking. Another taxi passes by, his light is out and no more fares. Why even try? Traffic lights are flashing red, but the city's only dead for just an hour. Then the light shines down on Camp Street, and the light shines down on Camp Street, and the light shines down on Camp Street till the night surrounds the streets again. Thanks for tuning in to A Beer and a Tune. We'll see you again soon. Thanks a lot.